You've got a movie idea that you're eager to produce. You want to start writing your script. But where do you start? Despite today's huge film budgets, special effects, and stunts, a good script relies on great dialogue. Learning how to write dialogue is not easy. You've written a pretty good script, but you know that it could be great. Could writing better dialogue in your screenplay be that missing piece? If so, how do you do it? Hang on to the end of this video because I'm going to review 23 tips to write better dialogue so your next screenplay kickstarts your filmmaking career. Hi, I'm Jim Costa. I'm a full-time working photographer, video producer, video editor, and technology pro. I want to get going on the topic quickly, but do stick around till the end of this video, because I'm going to tell you about some freebies and training courses that I offer to improve your photography, video production, and filmmaking work, and to help grow your business through something known as earned media exposure, which is basically free advertising. If you like what you see, smash that subscribe button and hit that bell to be notified every time I upload a new video each and every Wednesday. And remember, I welcome your comments, questions, and more on all of my videos. So, you want to know how to write dialogue, but many of the screenwriting tips you get are too broad, less specific, and feel a bit hollow. Well, my first tip, learning how to write a screenplay, starts with writing action lines, transitions, and compelling characters before writing even one word of dialogue. If your goal is to learn how to write a screenplay, the first screenwriting tip that you need to know is to create a writing workflow that ends with writing dialogue last. If you follow these steps in order, your scripts will show producers that you know how to write great dialogue, and you'll be a better screenwriter overall. So let's get into my screenwriting tips for writing better dialogue. Tip number 2 is to gather useful research. Ever hear someone say, write what you know? Everyone has, because it's nice, safe advice. You can look at it in two ways. They either think that you should lace in elements from your own experiences into your characters and plot, which is the kind route, or they think you don't do your research and don't know what you're talking about. If you want to write a detective thriller, you want to reach out to retired detectives. Watch great detective films and documentaries, or read biographies on detectives and FBI agents and so forth. People love to learn from films, so do some heavy research on a specific topic and then use what you learned to entertain others. A lack of research will sap the willing suspension of disbelief from the audience, and you'll lose them and they won't like the story you're telling. You want to write about lawyers or astronauts or tech companies? Figure out as much as you can before you begin to write your screenplay, and definitely before you begin to write any dialogue. The more you know about a topic, the more realistic your dialogue will be. Number 3, show, don't tell. As far as cinema and television goes, action lines reign supreme. Writing dialogue feels nice, it flows pretty naturally and takes up a lot of real estate on the page, but 15 pages of good dialogue isn't worth 1 page of decent action. As far as action scenes go, the audience should see everything it needs to see, and the vast majority of dialogue in the film should be there to enhance the actions taking place on screen. This is one of the reasons why dialogue that accompanies stunt sequences very rarely seems extraneous, especially as a form of punctuation for the scene. That's because the action is the main course and the dialogue is the dessert. Have you ever heard of a one-liner? Even if your film is an edgy character piece, or if it's a zany romantic comedy and not an action film, you'll always capture an audience with more action and less talk. Number 4, use an outsider for exposition. One of the best tips for learning how to write dialogue is to use an outsider. By using an outsider to introduce information, you create a feeling of legitimacy, as though the information you hope to convey is common knowledge. Here is a good dialogue example. Instead of having your character say, "I avoid conflict," have another character say, "I know you like Joe, but he really isn't the conflict resolution type." Number 5, right between the lines. Often, the best dialogue occurs when a character avoids the truth. This doesn't mean they have to lie or deceive, but they can't be on the level all the time either. This is especially true when your character is in a compromising situation, which should be quite often, since that often makes for a great scene. Whenever the viewer has prior knowledge of something, it can be especially interesting or even funny to see someone lie or misrepresent their true feelings. You know why? Because we get to be in on the joke. You're not just learning how to write dialogue, but rather how to create a scene with layers that your dialogue can exploit. A lot of television benefits from between the lines dialogue because these shows have to write dozens of episodes rather than a single 100+ page script. Number 6, develop a complete character. When learning how to write dialogue in your screenplay, you need to ask yourself how people operate in their daily lives based on their mood. I doubt you are a one-dimensional human being. I know I'm not. You've been kind and you've been a jerk, and maybe even both on the same day. Your characters should be just as complex, but it's important not to have huge shifts in their attitudes in a short amount of time. Your hero can be a grouch, like John Creasy in Man on Fire, and your villain can be polite, like Hans Landa in Inglourious Basterds. Actions speak louder than words, and your characters need to show us their true nature with deeds. They use dialogue to distract the viewer. It's more than simply writing dialogue that is diametrically opposed to the nature of your character, because there is nuance to everything. Building a complete character is one of the most important screenwriting tips for writing better dialogue because it makes your job that much easier. You don't need to learn how to write dialogue for interesting characters because the motivation of each line will organically flow into your scripts. Your characters may reveal tiny portions of the truth or have a moment of stress that boils up and overcomes them. All of those things work. Number 7, give characters a unique voice. We all have different speech patterns, catchphrases, and our own unique tempo when we speak, and you should implement this into your dialogue as well. A common screenwriting tip for this is to cover up the character name and see if you can identify each character purely based on the dialogue that you read. This is one of the reasons character archetypes are useful, because they force you to think in terms of personality and motivation with each moment. What would a leader say versus a caregiver in a certain situation? Think about combining a unique voice with a complex character. If we see the caregiver act one way for most of the film, and then see a moment when they change, you can cement it with some dialogue that shows a willingness to change their speech patterns. This was basically the entire plot of The King's Speech. It's especially true in ensemble pieces or films with teams and squads. Number 8, avoid redundancy and definitely don't say the same thing twice. A film or show is a train on the tracks. We don't reverse unless there is new information to be had. So once you've said or shown something, move on. We get it. Make it work with just one line. Number 9, stretch important information out. Just because you have important information that you need to convey to your viewer doesn't mean you have to show all your cards right away. Make the viewer work for it. Lead the viewer with little breadcrumbs. When you give information to the viewer in single servings, you can stretch the effectiveness of your ultimate point. Number 10, show us the interesting stuff. There's an old screenwriting tip of arrive into the scene late and leave the scene early. What this basically means is to skip the pleasantries. If you have a scene with 2 divorcees in arbitration, like in The Wedding Crashers, we don't need to start the scene with the clerk unlocking the meeting room door, setting up the chairs, filling up the water glasses, and so forth. We don't need to see people enter the room. We don't need to see them leave the room at the end. What we do need to see is the middle portion, the fight that they're going to have in arbitration. But how does this relate to dialogue? When learning how to write a screenplay, you will quickly learn this. Your dialogue is an extension of your scene. If your scene is trudging through some super boring situation, there's a pretty good chance that the accompanying dialogue won't be much better. The reason I named this section show the interesting stuff is because I've often watched films and shows that will have this big moment happen and then they'll cut away to later that night or some other time in the future. Why? I was so darn caught up in this well-crafted and stressful moment. Stay on the moments right after a murder happens. Stay right after the guy misses the game-winning field goal or whatever. You will automatically write better dialogue when it accompanies a truly interesting moment in your script, especially one that people can relate to. Number 11 is logical conflict is good. People will say conflict is good in scripts, but I kind of disagree with that. Logical conflict, however, is good in scripts. In fact, it is baked into the cake. Conflict is also different than arguing. Take the film Adaptation, for example. Charlie and Donald are very rarely arguing, but there is a sense of conflict. One is a struggling professional screenwriter, and the other is a fresh screenwriter who seems to be inspired at every turn. We know Charlie doesn't want to hear his brother's excitement, but he also loves his brother and doesn't want to take the wind out of his sails. Charlie wouldn't want someone to do that to him, and this makes the dialogue writing process so much more simpler, logical, and interesting. Want to know how to write better dialogue? Build logical conflict. This is true conflict, inner conflict, and external at the same time, and it all makes perfect sense to anyone with a life. And every moment in your script doesn't actually need to have conflicts. Writers will hear that conflict is good and then inject every scene in their script with some form of conflict, but this, more often than not, translates into a bunch of people screaming at one another. This is manufactured conflict instead of natural conflict. If you're wondering how to write a movie script, don't manufacture conflict. Viewers are far too sophisticated for that, and it will constantly get in the way of you writing better dialogue in your screenplays. The word that comes to mind in this case is contrived. You want to write a good script, which really means setting up strong cinematic devices that never let the viewer down, enhancing those devices with your dialogue, and setting up meaningful transitions. If you're soaring over your script like a hawk looking for scenes that you can scoop up and inject with some conflict, you may be in trouble. Conflict in your script should be natural, apparent, and baked into the cake of your characters' traits, the plot, and the logical competition. Now, if this is making sense to you, but I've got it in the comments section below. Number 12 is interrupt other conversations. Have you ever had a moment where you were telling a secret and then someone walks up and interrupts your conversation? It's a compromising situation, and this works as a really great way to stretch important information right between the lines and add logical conflict, but it also just makes for an entertaining scene. Even if the interrupter immediately asks for a private conversation, you've now set up a perfect moment of conflict for your characters. Why? Because now we get to physically see our characters make decisions. How will they handle this delicate political situation they are in? Whatever the answer, it will say oodles about your characters. Number 13, take advantage of every role. You should never have a throwaway character with throwaway lines. If you do, it's pretty self-explanatory what you should be doing with them. Throw them away. One of the great first lines in the film is in this scene from Die Hard. Now, why is this so great? Well, there's two reasons. This character never comes back, yet he has some fun dialogue, a point of view, and even a piece of helpful advice that most people would be interested to try the next time they got on a plane. Additionally, this interaction leads to a great piece of conflict in the film because it is the impetus for John McClane to take off his shoes. When the terrorists burst into the party, he is forced to run away, shoeless, and leads to a couple of important scenes later in the film. The businessman also sees John's pistol, which gives John the go-ahead to tell us he's a cop. The filmmakers show first, we see the outsider's reaction, and now John has a logical reason to fill us in that he is a cop. I'll come back to Die Hard later. Number 14, don't be basic. People enjoy movies because they take us out of our comfort zone. They show us a world we wish to visit, but not live inside for too long. You don't show a character peeling potatoes for 2 hours. So why would you write the dialogue equivalent of that in your scripts? You don't have to be controversial or crude, just don't be dull. Take Aaron Sorkin, Quentin Tarantino, Alexander Payne, or Guy Ritchie, for example. These are writers well known for writing better dialogue than many of their peers, and while one could argue that the overall style often cuts against the rule of unique voices, they are definitely not boring screenwriters. If you want to know how to write better dialogue in your screenplays, don't be basic. Number 15, tell us more through narration. Narration, or internal voiceover, is actually something that I kind of enjoy, but often the narration is a weak play-by-play of the events taking place. Narration isn't supposed to be the crutch you lean on for support, it's the running shoes that give you the extra traction you need. Take Henry Hill, for example, in Goodfellas. You might get a quick description of the events with a bunch of extra points that give the viewer a richer understanding of the scenes. Unless narration makes the scene significantly better, you probably don't need it in your scene. Number 16, make your actors happy. When writing dialogue in a story, it will help to think about the actors. Actors love good story dialogue for a number of reasons, but the main one is that auditions very rarely have actors carrying out actions. Instead, they're in a small room reading dialogue. This is how actors rehearse with one another. They study dialogue examples or find writers who already know how to write dialogue and take those scenes and run lines until they feel good about their performance. When you give your actors fun lines, they will be happy. Now, does this mean you should sacrifice story over style? No, of course not. But if you're going to get a good performance, chances are it makes the story better. You will be able to tell that you took advantage of screenplay tips and dialogue rules by the actor's face when they read your script. They picture themselves on screen delivering that great line. Even if they are portraying a coward, a good actor will spot good dialogue in the script because it gives them something with which to work. This is also great as a way to sell your screenplay because oftentimes exciting the right actor with a good role is the quickest way to have your script produced. Number 17, make your speeches count. This goes hand in hand with the last tip I had, but it still needs to be said. There will be moments when you want a character to give a big speech and they should totally do it, but when they do it, it has to work really well. You can often reserve them for the beginning of your scene or the end of your scene, as well as the beginning and end of the entire movie. Speeches should generally be reserved for the most important characters in your story. I'd say the top 2 or 3 at most. Number 18, stay consistent until you shouldn't. Consistency with your dialogue basically means you shouldn't have a character that is tonally bipolar, unless that is the point of the character. But if you have a good-natured character who suddenly begins to tease people left and right, you may be confusing the viewer unless there's a reason for this to happen. Now, what about this until you shouldn't part? Well, you know that good characters go through change. Coordinate your tonal shifts, changes in speaking patterns, and general adjustments to the demeanor for the really big moments in your script. Think of act breaks and beat points as the time to do this. Maybe have your polite housewife tell her loving husband, "I hate who I see in the mirror, and it's because of this marriage." Well, that is quite a unique shift from what you had in the story before. So big, in fact, that it might change the entire trajectory of the story. So think about that when you're writing. Number 19, use foreshadowing and callbacks. Earlier, I said I'd bring back the Die Hard example, and I wasn't joking. That's because it's a great example of a callback, referring to something earlier and then coming back to it later on. Callbacks and foreshadowing go hand in hand because they are really logical, show you have a point to events in your story, and can really please an active viewer. Generally, callbacks set up by dialogue and some action that seemed innocuous at the time, but comes back at a significant moment, is an example of really good dialogue and how to write a screenplay in general, because the dialogue seems natural and informs the story. Foreshadowing works in this way as well, but is often seen on screen as a shot more so than dialogue, but it can be either way. Number 20, relationships alter speech. If you're learning how to write a screenplay, you will benefit greatly from understanding how our relationships influence our speech. When I speak to my mother on the phone, I speak one way. When I speak with my friends on the phone, I speak an entirely different way. I would assume that this is the case for most people, but it should definitely be the case for your characters when you're writing their dialogue. Authority, compassion, respect, disgust, all of this comes from the relationship dynamic we have with one another. You can break this dialogue rule to great effect as well. When everyone speaks to the king in one way, but our hero speaks to him differently, it says something very profound about the character, and this will help you to write better dialogue as well. Number 21, Sidney Lumet's Rubber Duckies. Very few books have as much insight into how to write a screenplay than Sidney Lumet's Making Movies. His films are a masterclass on how to write better dialogue, and his book has some of the best screenwriting tips around. I know because I've actually read it. One of these tips is called Rubber Ducky Dialogue. Lumet said, "Someone took away his rubber ducky once, that's why he's a deranged killer now." This rubber ducky term, which sounds kind of weird, was their screenwriting term for when a character explains their personality based completely around a traumatic situation from their past. Lumet believes that behavior should reveal psychology. Number 22, does it bring you joy? If you've ever watched Tidying Up, then you know two things: how to fold, and does something bring me joy? This idea is rather a classical method for eliminating worldly possessions that you really don't need. Go through your script and find anything that doesn't make you smile. It doesn't matter if you've written a gore-filled horror film or a prestige movie about starving puppies who decide to finally take on the system. Writing a good script will make you happy. If a line of dialogue doesn't bring you joy, follow Henry Jones's advice. Number 23, finally, read your script out loud. This is the last step in your screenwriting audit. You want to actually read your script out loud so that you can hear how the lines of dialogue, the rhythm, the intentions, and the length of each line actually sound. I've written countless lines of dialogue that I thought were really great until I read them out loud. Often the answer presents itself. Sometimes it's a simple contraction, other times it's as complicated as a complete rewrite. And I'll give you some of my own advice. Every one of these scripts that I put together for my tutorials, before I record, I actually go through the whole script at least once, sometimes more than once, and read it out loud so I hear how it sounds. And a lot of times I do that and I realize things didn't translate the way I had them in my mind to when I speak them out loud. So I changed the script based on that. And it's the same idea for anything, whether you're writing a movie or a TV show or whatever. Read it out loud before you show it to anyone and see how it sounds and make changes as you need to. Now, take the advice I've listed here to inspire you to get going on improving your dialogue. My question of the day is, what piece of advice in this video resonated the most with you? Leave a comment below and let me know. If you found the information in this video useful, I'd like to hear about it from you. If you liked it and want to see more videos like this, then follow my YouTube channel, Jim Costa Films. If you think what you saw was great, please do like it. If you have an opinion, feel free to comment below. If you know someone who could benefit from the information that I provided, please share the video. You can connect with me and my company, Jim Costa Films, on social media and online, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and the web by searching for Jim Costa Films. In fact, I currently have over 4,500 videos on my YouTube channel, Jim Costa Films, so feel free to check out many of my other videos for great tips and suggestions. Thank you for sticking around this long. I mentioned at the beginning about some freebies and training. As a professional video producer and photographer, I've created an absolutely free cheat sheet for you on all the best camera settings to shoot with your DSLR, mirrorless, or video camera that will show you the settings that will allow your photos, and particularly your videos, to shine and stand out from the competition. The link to get that cheat sheet is just below in the video description. Best of all, my cheat sheet specializes in shooting video with any type of camera. In it, you'll find all the info you need on important video techniques, such as white balance, color temperature, frame rates, and more. I've also created an editing training course for Adobe Premiere Pro. My Quick Start training is designed to get you up and editing video in under 2 hours and includes over 100 tips, tricks, and keyboard shortcuts for video editors that get you started in the program and makes your workflow go much faster. Now, I'm also affiliated with Christina Nicholson, a fellow media veteran like myself who helps businesses and entrepreneurs reach tons of their ideal customers or clients through the power of media without spending big bucks on advertising. I've worked with Christina and used her advice and training successfully, so I know from first-hand experience that it works great. The program Christina and I are now offering is called the Media Mentoring Program, and it will help you to take advantage of mainstream media so you can stand out from the competition, because that's not something everyone has access to. Best of all, unlike paid ads and sponsorships, you can gain lots of exposure and credibility to become the go-to brand everyone talks about and wants to do business with without spending a fortune on advertising, because the program is geared to get you free advertising. I'll link to those cheat sheets and training courses in the description below as well. There's videos on both courses that will give you an overview of how they can help you, as well as links to get more information. You can help to support my channel by purchasing my training courses, requesting my free downloads, or by hiring me to shoot and edit for you. Remember, I've also done other videos on filmmaking and video production, and others on script writing tips as well, and I'll link to those in the video description below as well. Finally, if you follow me for a while now, you know that I have a private community of photographers, videographers, and filmmakers, just like you on Facebook, where I share other pro tips and tricks. It's called Video Producers and Content Creators. I love new members who want to share their work, learn from others, and also help others based on their own skills and experience. The group is private and only for people in the filmmaking, video production, and photography industries that I personally work in myself. It's not a public group like my Facebook page that I talked about earlier. That's a public page and anyone can see that because I want them to see my business. You'll find a link to that group in the description below, so feel free to join it where you can learn even more.